Yes, people, welcome back to the channel, and I want to thank Hanno as well for allowing me to do this. Of course, with the match taking place in about 15 minutes from now, I really want to watch, and I also want to thank my own broadcaster for graciously offering to broadcast this. This is, of course, the 2026 UEFA Super Cup, a prestigious pre-season European trophy. As is mentioned over here, it is between the winners of the UEFA Champions League and the UEFA Europa League. So definitely something to play for, as has been for quite some time. And it is, of course, between Champions League winners Paris Saint-Germain and Europa League winners Aston Villa, live from the Red Bull Arena in Salzburg in Austria. So I wonder if we're going to get a rather salty sort of clash tonight. Now, as I've mentioned, it is a pre-season clash between champions, and obviously the trophy will mean something. It's certainly not a friendly trophy by any means. So to answer this question, is it important? It is definitely important. It is a prestigious trophy, something definitely worth, fighting for, more than the Community Shield, which back in the day, mind you, was called the Charity Shield, and it was more of a friendly game between the winners of the League Championship, the Old First Division Championship, and the FA Cup winners. And if it finished even at the end of the game, the trophy was shared. Now, of course, they've tried to revamp it by making it a bit more competitive. And, of course, there will be a penalty shootout at the end of that game, I believe, after the full 90 minutes, just like there will be a penalty shootout at the end of this game. I do not believe we will be going to extra time. And since it's been that way for quite some time, this is definitely a prestigious trophy. And both of these teams, in fact, have won Super Cup to their credit, both of them having won that as Champions League winners. PSG, of course, are the defending Super Cup champions, as it were. They won this trophy last season by beating Tottenham. And, of course, they did go behind 2-0 and were minutes away from actually losing that tie before Thomas Frank's bizarre tactics ended up costing Spurs a chance to win. They ended up drawing 2-2 at the end of the game and losing on penalties. And I tell you what, if Ange Postecoglou had been in charge of that Tottenham team, PSG wouldn't have won this tournament. Aston Villa, of course, winning it back in 1982 as European Cup winners. They had beaten Bayern Munich in the final 1-0 in Rotterdam, and they ended up having a two-legged clash between themselves and FC Barcelona. Barcelona, of course, winning 1-0 at the Nou Camp, and Aston Villa winning the return leg 3-0 with goals from, I don't quite remember, it was Gary Shaw and Gordon Cowans who were two of the goal scorers. I might have to look up the other one. But I will, of course, get back, make sure I get my information right on that. Let me just take a look and see. Yes, Aston Villa, of course, won that Super Cup in 1982, as I've mentioned. It was Marcos Alonso who had put Barcelona 1-0 up on aggregate at the end of that tie. I wonder if he's related to another. Yep, he is, in fact, the father of a certain Marcos Alonso Mendoza, who currently plays for Celta de Vigo and who was on the books at Real Madrid, Chelsea, and Barcelona, among other clubs. And they even had a stint at Bolton Wanderers and Sunderland in between. Go figure. And it was Ken McNaught, skipper on the night, who scored the third goal, because when Gary Shaw scored in the 80th minute, it did go to extra time. But Gordon Cowans and Ken McNaught made sure that the trophy went back to Birmingham. But they even did it. They even managed to hold on after having Alan Evans sent off for two bookable offences. So don't let anyone tell you that this isn't a prestigious trophy. It is a big trophy. And, of course, I am watching highlights of the Champions League final between PSG and Arsenal. We were poor throughout. I'm surprised it went to penalties. And thanks in no small part to some poor penalties and also a poor goalkeeping performance by Arsenal's own goalkeeper. Yes, I'm going there. It's not Arsenal who will be playing Villa for the Super Cup. It is Paris Saint-Germain. And, of course, speaking of Arsenal, they are in action tonight. I believe they just kicked off against a Como side managed by our former captain, Francesc Fabregas-Soler. So we will, of course, provide you updates on how that's going. And at the moment, I can tell you that after 15 minutes or so, a quarter of an hour, it is still 0-0, no goals as of yet. There are some other friendlies being played between Premiership teams, and I can tell you that Manchester United have taken the lead against Leeds United. A lovely Roses clash there. Joshua Zirkzee on 16 minutes after an assist from Brian Bomo. And some more action to be coming your way tomorrow, I would think. No, it's actually come starting. But these friendlies are certainly probably going to take place a little bit later. I don't know, because they haven't really been probably going to be taking place tomorrow. But for the moment, it is Arsenal, Manchester United, and Leeds in action. A nice little clash between Deportivo La Coruña and Real Madrid. So Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang starting for Depor, and no sign of another ex-gunner, Charlie Patino, on the bench. Kind of sad. And it is also a reserve Real Madrid side playing. Many of their World Cuppers haven't come back yet, of course. And speaking, of course, of the lineups, I will, of course, give you some team news. But also, we have had some very sad news recently with the sad passing of Lionel Messi's father, Jorge, who passed away at the age of 68 some days ago. That was, of course, not long after his son's heroic but ultimately tragic attempt to win a second consecutive World Cup. And of course, obviously Leo's quite emotional about that. And he posted a heartwarming tribute to his father on Instagram. And all I can say is, Leo, we're all with you. Genuine football lovers will be supportive of you as you go through this difficult time. We hope your father will be at peace, and we also hope that you and your family will find some comfort. And I do hope there will be a minute's silence being observed at the Salzburg Arena, in lieu of the fact that Messi did play for Paris Saint-Germain. And of course, Messi's great teammate and favourite goalkeeper, Emi Martinez, plays for Aston Villa. But of course, we will deal with the team news. Emi is one of a few World Cuppers who will not be in action for Aston Villa tonight. Well, Paris Saint-Germain, for the most part, do have more or less a full squad to choose from. And quite interestingly, mind you, this is more or less the same team, almost the same team, really, that won the Champions League in Budapest when they played against Arsenal. And I will just confirm the team lineup there. They brought a new signing in, Akliouche, who will be starting tonight. And he is, of course, starting in place of Ousmane Dembele, with Desiree Doué moving into the middle. Another person who will be on the bench tonight is Fabian Ruiz, a World Cupper. Didn't play very much in the tournament. He will be, of course, on the bench. And Warren Zaïre-Emery comes in to his place. So 9 of the players who started that Champions League final will be starting tonight for PSG. Do not say that they're not taking this seriously, including, of course, Captain Marquinhos and Achraf Hakimi, among others, Nuno Mendes from Portugal, João Neves as well. And among the substitutes, the likes of Dembele, of course, will be on the bench. Luca Digne, of course, started for Aston Villa in the Europa League final not too long ago. And since then, he has secured a transfer to Paris Saint-Germain and will be on the bench against his former club. Barcola has been subject of a possible transfer to the Premier League, be it Liverpool, most probably. For now, though, he is on the bench and is expected to play. Now, I did mention that there are some big changes to the Aston Villa team. There is no Ollie Watkins. There is no Ezri Konsa. Both of them, of course, were part of the England squad that reached the semi-finals, losing to Emi Martinez Argentina. And none of those three are in the squad tonight, and so they won't play. Martinez, of course, had a broken ring finger. It's healing in a way, but he was playing through pain throughout the World Cup. And Unai Emery has said that these 3 players have been given an extra week off and will not be joining them for this match in Salzburg. But he does expect them to be in contention to start in the Premier League the following week when they travel to the Amex to play Brighton and Hove Albion. And so among the starters on that night in Istanbul, we have Matthew Cash, Victor Lindelof, Pau Torres, John McGinn, and Emi Buendia. So that's 5 of the players who are starting tonight. And some very interesting replacements, of course. Lindelof actually started that game in the defensive midfield pivot with Konsa and Torres behind him, but he slots back into the defense in place of Konsa. And it will be new signing João Gomez, who partners the returning Boubacar Kamara in the centre of the midfield. Kamara taking the number 8 jersey that was vacated by Yuri Tillemans, who, of course, scored that magnificent opener in the final in Istanbul and has since completed the move to Manchester United. John McGinn will, captain the side and be on the right wing, Emi Buendia on the left. And instead of Morgan Rogers, it's George Hennings, a young youth prospect, who will be playing in the number 10 position. And it is, of course, an interesting start for Brian Maggio, the Maggio man, as it were, 17-year-old who wasn't expected to, play much this season until he turned 18. But with Aston Villa's appeal approved to CAS, I believe, he is now eligible to play and has been registered for this game and will be expected to play in the Premiership and certainly the Champions League this season. So a lot of good things have been said about him. He could very well be a big force this season. And of course, behind every world-class keeper is a world-class understudy. Marco Bizot started the first and last games of Aston Villa's Premiership season. He also started in 4 of Aston Villa's league games in the Europa League competition last season. And he, of course, gets the nod tonight with Emi Martinez not in the squad. And it will be James Wright who will be among the players on the bench, along with Tyrone Mings and Ross Barkley and Tammy Abraham, of course, who, returned to the squad. The promotion hero from the 2019 season is, of course, back at the club. And he might relish coming off the bench, and we could see the likes of Barkley or even Bohada coming off the bench. Koth Nedeljkovic could also replace Matthew Cash if need be, and several other youngsters, including Allison, who is now fit to play this season, will be in the squad. And now we see the teams walking out with both teams, of course, both captains, I should say, taking their respective trophies with them and, holding them as they walk for the campus. John McGinn there and Marquinhos, and they will be placing them on some other platforms elsewhere on the pitch. And it is, of course, just in front of the banner for the UEFA Super Cup. And we now see both teams, of course, lining up. Allison, of course, as I mentioned, is now fit to play and has been registered. Luca Lynch, Bradley Burrows, and another new signing, Keba Cisse, a new central defender / defensive midfielder. He could possibly also see some action if Unai Emery decides to bring him on as a replacement for Victor Lindelof. And we see the anthem being played. I can't really hear what the anthem is because my TV's on. I've muted my TV. Funnily enough, they've actually adopted the same anthem that was used for Euro 2008. Very nice, catchy anthem, I must say, but a little bit recycled, of course. And we see the coaches, Luis Enrique, of course, having won back-to-back Champions Leagues, will be hoping to win a second Super Cup. Unai Emery, for all of his mastery in the Europa League, has never won the Super Cup, so he will be looking to break his drought. And confirmation of the PSG lineups, of course, it will be the same back 4 that started in Budapest. The only 2 changes, of course, see Akliouche and Zaire Emery coming in for Dembele and Fabian Ruiz, respectively. The same 4-3-3 as expected. And we should possibly see the captains standing with the referee at the moment. And the referee is Omar Artan from Somalia, and his assistants are also from Africa, from Djibouti and Kenya. Omar Artan, of course, made the headlines for being the referee that was disgracefully, turned away at the immigration from in the US, and he was banned from refereeing during the World Cup. The US's immigration policy made it clear that he was not going to be eligible to referee in the tournament, despite being picked for it. And that was one of the reasons why I decided not to watch a single minute of the World Cup, and I'm proud of my decision. I applaud UEFA for their decision to award him this consolation prize, as it were. But I would like to see, more of an outreach and more of an opportunity for African officials to referee in these big European games, and maybe we will see them. And, of course, confirmation of the Villa starting lineup. It is, of course, It looks as though he's going to be starting in the 4-4-2 with McGinn and Hemmings on the wings and Cameron Gomes in the middle, which means that Maggio and Buendia are going to be the centre forward. Now, Emery does like to have some fluidity in his formations. He normally goes for a 4-2-3-1, but with this 4-4-2, maybe he wants to try to have a bit more width. Normally, you'd have Buendia on the left wing and someone else up front. Interesting selection. And the assistant referees, as I've mentioned, are Liban Abdul Razak Ahmed from Djibouti and Stephen Eliazar Onyango Yembe from Kenya. So all three on-field officials will be from Africa, of course. The fourth official is a European, Rade Abrenovic from Slovenia. And the VAR officials are represented by Italy and Spain, Marco Di Bello and Guillermo Cuadra Fernandez. So I believe they've just about to start. I mean, they haven't started quite yet, so it is time, of course, to put up the scoreboard. And yes, we have, in fact, kicked off, and a rather uneventful beginning with, I think that was that Vitinha or was that Doué who sent that out for a throw? It looks as though they're trying to push Aston Villa back and see if they can press them forward. I think that's Matson with the throw, and that goes all the way back into the PSG half. And looks as though it'll be Ashraf Hakimi who passes it back to Matt Sapna. No, that's actually Marquinhos who passes it back with Hakimi on the wing. Menj, of course, receiving that from Pacha. And that goes across to the Brazilian captain Marquinhos. Pacha again, who has a bit of a bandage on his left wrist. I'm not too sure why. And of course, these teams had a titanic Champions League tie in the quarterfinals 2 seasons ago, with the PSG winning 3-1 at on their home turf, and Aston Villa winning 3-2 at Villa Park. PSG somehow overcoming them, and Aston Villa definitely gave it as soon as they got that day. But that Aston Villa team, a far cry from this one tonight. No Marcus Rashford, no Marco Asensio. Vitinha sending it forward, and that is with Hakimi, who's sort of overlapped a bit. Here's back with Marquinhos now trying to send it forward. Blocked. Pacho. Menj. And that should go out for a throw-in. Kvaratskhelia unable to get that in time. We have 3 people watching, but we don't have anyone in the comments section, so please make yourselves known. I want to hear from all of you. And it is back with Victor Lindelof, who passes it back to the Dutch reserve goalkeeper, Marco Biesert. Lindelof, of course, back to a somewhat more familiar role in the centre of the defence. And, of course, he was Sweden's captain during the World Cup, but sadly they exited quite early. So Lindelof had no problems coming back early for training. Same can't be said for Emi Martinez, Ezri Konsa, or Ollie Watkins. And, of course, there is Unai Emery wearing a T-shirt tonight instead of his usual shirt, coloured shirt. And, of course, it might be hot, so he's not wearing a jumper either. Emi Buendia standing over this free kick, which Aston Villa have won. Definitely a controversial omission from the Argentinian squad. Should have been there, in my opinion. And he whips it in, hoping to find Maggio, but it's cleared. It is with McGinn, though, who receives the ball from Matthew Cash. Cash looking to overlap now. McGinn hoping to whip it in, and Pacho heads that clear. Akliouche retrieving the ball, and that will probably be an Aston Villa throw, and it is. Boubacar Kamara returning from an ACL injury he sustained following an ugly tackle from João Palhinha when Villa played Spurs in the FA Cup at the Tottenham Stadium. Is talk, surprisingly, of João Palhinha coming over to Villa Park on loan from Bayern Munich. We'll have to see if that happens. Matson taking the throw, and now he's in the penalty area. Could perhaps send it through. It's blocked, but the first corner of the night goes to Aston Villa after 3.5 minutes. And, of course, there is the sight of the former villain, who will probably end up being a villain for Aston Villa, pun intended, if he comes off the bench and provides an assist for a goal. Now, this corner looks as though it's going to be taken by Emi Buendia. Does have a beautiful right foot on him. And looks as though he will be hoping to find the 6'4" Maggio. And it very nearly found Torres, but it just went over him. Cash, though, hoping to link up with McGinn once again, but being forced back by what looks like Akliouche, yeah, you can see the number 11 jersey there. And so Marco Bizot has to calm proceedings. Marco Bizot also has Champions League experience, having played a full season with Stade Brestois, and he's been an excellent acquisition for Aston Villa. Certainly brought out the best in Emi Martinez last season after the difficulties he had the season before. Zaire Emery, who finds Akliouche, and that is Desiree Doué, I believe, on the right, but some great work there from Ian Matson. Expected to be the starting left back this season, but not someone who necessarily overlaps, and a poor piece of play there from Desiree Doué sends Matson something. Matson, of course, an omission from Ronald Koeman's squad for the World Cup, but he is, of course, back fit. And Villa have, of course, completed the signing of the Italian left-back, Matteo Ruggeri, from Atletico Madrid. He will certainly be expected to be an upgrade on Luca Digne. And it's just amazing how different this Aston Villa team looks from the team that blitzed Freiburg in Istanbul. And one of those Freiburg players, Johan Manzambi, also joined Villa over the summer with a certain Emi Martinez sealing the deal, as it were, after Argentina played Switzerland. A knee injury has kept him out of this clash, but you would think that once he recovers, he will have a big role to play as the designated replacement for Morgan Rogers. João Gomez, of course, expected to be a replacement for Yuri Tillemans. Unai Emery, of course, having managed PSG for 2 seasons, won a domestic treble with them, and still has the highest win percentage of PSG managers over the last few years, but sadly wasn't able to quite get them over the line in the Champions League. And not too long after managing PSG, he joined Arsenal, the only club with which he wasn't able to win the Europa League. And I will still to this day blame the majority of the players in that team for downing tools on him. Vitinha, Hakimi, Doué trying to send it forward, but I think that's a bit loopy, and Akliouche was never going to get on the end. And PSG ended up winning the ball, but I think there was a bit of an infringement there, and the linesman was quick to see that. No, it was actually a throw-in, and it was not taken properly. So PSG take it again, and it's thrown back to Marquinhos. Pacho, Nuno Mendes, the Portuguese left-back, who missed his penalty in Budapest, so it's saved by David Raya. But with Raya diving too early in the wrong way, that missed didn't matter. Ebrieze and Gabriel Magalhaes missing both their penalties as Arsenal tasted defeat. And PSG, of course, fielding 9 of the same starters that played in Budapest, will be expected to, dominate this game. But Villa seem to be holding their own so far. 7.5 minutes played and still 0-0. Lindelof trying to send it forward, finds Buendia. Camera sending it forward, but sort of a bit too far there for George Hemmings. And you can tell that maybe Emery's treating this like more of a pre-season game. It is, of course, a prestigious trophy, and it should be one. You should have an aim to win, I should say, but obviously once more players come back, you will have a full squad from which to choose, and it's clear that Premiership football will be their bread and butter this season, hoping to secure another top 4 finish. And if they can go really far in the Champions League, that would be another bonus. Kvaratskhelia passing it back to Pacho there. And a lot of back pass play taking place in this game so far. Can Mendes send it forward? It's with João Neves. Zaire Emery. Marquinhos now on the ball. A little bit of interplay there between Hakimi and Akliouche. It's Vitinha now. Desiree Doué trying to send it forward, and that is Hakimi who's overlapped. He's gone past Matson quite brilliantly, but the final shot was a bit of a letdown, not really well controlled. It is with Kvaratskhelia though. Akliouche. Madsen's going to have a tough time of it with Akliouche and Doué combining there. Doué, of course, was combining with Dembele in the Champions League final. A weak attempt at a cross there, though, by Dembele, straight into the big hands of the big Dutchman, Marco Bizet. His compatriot, Madsen, tries to start playing it out. He finds Buendia. Maggio now, 6'4", built very strongly indeed. And he gets the better of Pacho, notwithstanding the fact that Pacho did send him back a bit. Some really exciting plays so far, and we haven't even had 10 minutes yet. Can't say exciting, but definitely, you know, intriguing is the word I'm looking for, yes. 2 people watching. Make yourselves heard in the comments, people. Hanno's not here tonight, but he allowed me to host this stream, and I'm very grateful. 10 minutes have just elapsed. It is Paris Saint-Germain 0, Aston Villa 0. Paris Saint-Germain, though, trying to get the upper hand. Vitinha sending it out to Hakimi. Akliouche is there on the wing, and he receives that. He now has to try to, well, he ends up passing it back to Pacho in the middle, but Pacho finds Vitinha, and Vitinha does love a good shot from distance, but that was anything but lovely. Possession game so far, and it does look as though Villa are going to try to play their classic counter-attacking style. And Bizot now has a job to do to try to play that out. Camera finds Lindelof. Finds John McGinn on the right, but McGinn has to try to maneuver past Mendes, and he loses the ball. And it's with Kvaratskhelia now, but excellent work from Matthew Cash, and John McGinn comes in to back him up. And McGinn once again laying it off with Cash to try and send it forward. He finds Maggio on the right, and this Maggio Mendes battle will be interesting. Maggio ends up forcing a throw. Well, Aston Villa have shown that they can certainly hold their own in defence so far, although Madsen has had a few difficult moments. And, you know, Mange there showing his know-how, sort of shielding the ball away from the Scotland captain, John McGinn. John McGinn, of course, can't say enjoying, but experiencing an earlier than desired exit with Scotland under Steve Clarke. Winning against Haiti, but only by 1 goal, and some 4 losses to Morocco and Brazil sent them out. Couldn't even qualify for the second stage as a best third-place team. Almost risky pass there from left to right. It is retrieved, of course, but they lose the ball. And it is with Camera now. He has space, so he can shoot. And just doesn't quite get it on target. But Safanov was scrambling there. A risky pass there, and it was, you know, well, won back by Aston Villa, but just couldn't quite get it on target. And it could very well be that Safanov had that shot covered. Speaking of Safanov, of course, didn't make a single save in the shootout, but didn't need to, really, because Eze and Gabriel Magalhaes completely shanked their penalties. Lindelof, back in his usual position of central defence, passing it back to Bizot, who sends it out to Madsen at left back. And you've got to admire Aston Villa for their ability to wriggle themselves out of trouble. And you see that there with George Hemmings there combining with Madsen beautifully. And it's with Buendia hoping to send it forward to Hemmings, but that is blocked and sent out for a throw. Buendia, of course, like Emi Martinez, hails from Mar del Plata. And had he been picked for the squad after that brilliant season he had, he'd have certainly provided a brilliant option on the left-hand side. Lionel Scaloni really choked in that World Cup final, it has to be said. Both Lionel Messi and Emi Martinez deserve a second World Cup medal, and especially in lieu of what happened with Messi since. Your heart goes out to him. That's all I can say. Safanov sending it forward, but that's a nothing kick, which is straight to Cash, and then Lindelof, who passes it back to Beasley. So you could say that the excitement has started to die down a bit. No real shots on target, but there was definitely a credible attempt on goal. Camera doing well to keep his shot low, but it just went wide of Sapanov's right-hand post. It's back with Marquinhos now. Marquinhos. He has Kvaratskhelia on the left, and he finds him. Back with Nuno Mendes though. And in Portuguese, it's pronounced Mendes, not Mendes. So, got to remember that. Pacho, he with the left wrist bandage. With Marquinhos now receiving that pass from his goalkeeper. And Vitinha once again having to drop deep a little bit. Hakimi sort of near the centre circle, and he's got Akliouche with him, hoping to combine, of course. And that should be a throw to, it is a throw to Aston Villa, in fact. And Nuno Mendes is not happy with the decision. According to him, according to Nuno, that's a no-no. And once again, highlights of that shot. I think Sapanov, to his credit, would have had that covered. 15 minutes and 20 seconds just gone. It is still 0-0 between the Champions League winners and the Europa League winners. Maggio receiving that throw in from Cash. And Maggio wins another throw. João Neves sending that out. Number font for the Aston Villa jersey is almost reminiscent of a typical NFL jersey in a way. Talking about the numbers, I should say. Nobody else joining in. Hopefully we might get some more, but brilliant little bit of play there from Buendia, finding Maggio, but Maggio not able to find his teammate, and PSG can clear the danger. Not a very good clearance, though. It finds Cara, sends it forward to McGinn, and McGinn rolling forward, but not quite able to control that, and that will be a goal kick. Now Torres they're getting in the action. Now Torres, of course, very unfortunate not to be a part of the Spanish national team picture anymore. It looks as though Emerick Laporte has his position covered, more or less. Could have been a European and a world champion, but it is what it is. And one of the few players who's had experience of playing under Unai Emery already. And surprisingly, it's even Stevens as far as possession is concerned. PSG slightly ahead with 51% to Aston Villa's 49%. Still hoping for people to come in the comments. Make yourselves heard. Let's be having you, as policemen would say. João Neves. Nuno Mendes. I think it might be Neves instead of Neves. I don't know. The Spanish-Portuguese dichotomies of pronunciation is something I'm going to have to master these days. Pacho. Mendes. Sending it forward to Vitinha, who finds Zaire Emery on the left and hoping to connect with Kvaratskhelia. Kvaratskhelia has not really, found his range tonight, and certainly in the first leg in Paris when they played Aston Villa, he and Nuno Mendes were cooking on that left-hand side. I think Cash has certainly improved his play and sort of not really allowed him to get much of a foothold in the game. But having said that, he's forced Kvaratskhelia back there, Matthew Cash, but it's with Vitinha now. Across to João Neves, who finds Hakimi, and Matson locking him up. And it is George Hemmings, who now has a chance to run. Sort of stopped in his tracks, but can he find a pass? A little bit of a collision there between the 5'7" Emi Buendia and the 6'4" Brian Maggio. That goes straight through to Sapanov. And now it's with Vitinha. Kvaratskhelia, who's moved into the centre. João Neves. Akliouche receiving that from Hakimi, passes it back to Hakimi. Neves. Finds Akliouche with Hakimi going forward. Hakimi and Akiush combining. Zaire Emery to Menj, back to Zaire Emery. No relation, of course, to Unai Emery. Vitinha, he's not going to shoot from distance again after what happened earlier. And Buendia forcing the ball back, but Pacho has it under control. Passes it to Zaire Emery. They're still in the Aston Villa half as we're coming towards 20 minutes played. Kvaratskhelia with a pass to Hakimi on the right. Hakimi with an attempted cross. No one on the end of that, but Menj is free. Finds Kvaratskhelia in the penalty area. Jigging his way past Emi Buendia. Desiree Doué. And that's a fine reflex save there from Marco Bizot. I think that took a deflection on the way through to the keeper, but the keeper still had to be aware. But Maggio unable to clear the danger. It is with Kvaratskhelia. And that is as good a strike as you will see. Right on 20 minutes, you had to say it had been coming. All eyes are going to be on the defence there. It's pretty fair to say that Brian Maggio found himself wanting there when it came to his defensive duties. But again, without Ezri Konsa in that back four, you could tell that there's a bit of a lack of leadership there. And we've got some comments, of course, coming in, and I will get to them, I promise you. But some pretty poor play there from Maggio, and Nedge won the ball back from him. Kvaratskhelia, license to shoot. I think Bizot sort of left the his top right hand corner vacant. And despite reaching out his big right hand, he was never going to stop that tracer bullet from going into the net. So, after 20 minutes, bang on 20 minutes, I should say, it was 1957 when the goal was scored. It is Paris Saint-Germain 1, Aston Villa 0, and so Unai Emery's men are under the cosh already. And we've got some people in the chat, and it's my friend Jean-Louis Brad. How's it to you, bud? Good to see you again as well. I know that you're enjoying watching the 100. Lovely to see that. And, of course, the first test coming up between Australia and Bangladesh, and also Sri Lanka against India. I don't know if you're watching this match. It might be being shown on SuperSport over in South Africa where you are. And, of course, in the UK, it's being shown on TNT Sports. I believe CBS is showing it in the US and TSN in Canada. And, of course, over here in my neck of the woods, Sony Sports Network. You've done the right thing for once. And some more trouble up ahead for Aston Villa as PSG have a free kick with Vitinha and Hakimi standing over that. And Villa have now got a job to do. They've got to tighten up and they've got to try and recover. And Emery will also have to make a few changes to try and get some, fluidity into that midfield. It will be Vitinha. No long shot this time. Straight to Menj. And that is wide. So, Jean-Louis, thanks a lot for your comments, bud. And if you are watching this, I'll try and send you the link on WhatsApp, and you are welcome to hop on at halftime to give me your thoughts on the game. And Aston Villa, once again, trying to find their way out of trouble, but Matson's forehead is intercepted. And that's another free kick that's been conceded. And I'll tell you what, João Gomez was impressive when Villa played against Bayern Munich in Hong Kong and scored an absolute beauty of a consolation goal. But so far, he's had a bit of trouble, and it could very well be that Ross Barkley might come on to shore things up a little bit. Georgie Hemmings in the number 10 position is a bit of a gamble, but I'm not too sure if there's anyone who can really replace him in that regard. Maybe Bogarde could come into the double pivot and Barkley could play in the 10. I don't know. But this 4-4-2 formation is leaving them quite weak centrally. Vitinha with a short free kick finds Hakimi. This time around, actually that was Doué who had the chance there, but Villa do clear their lines. Not for long though, because PSG still have the ball, and it is with the goal scorer, Kvaratskhelia. Hot property right now in Europe. And Omar Artan watching that clearly and is in no mood to even consider giving a penalty. But I have to say the referee has done an excellent job so far, certainly controlled the game, not allowed it to descend into anarchy, as it were. Not exactly a real coming together, and certainly nothing that would warrant a penalty. 24 minutes gone. Aston Villa are behind 1-0 thanks to a Kvaratskhelia goal right on the 20th minute. Sting, non-alcoholic energy drink. I do not condone consumption of alcohol while I am recording. João Neves finding Vitinha. Pacho. Kvaratskhelia. Pacho again. I wouldn't say the Maggio experiment so far has worked as we come up to the 25-minute mark. Obviously, when you're 6'4" and quite strong, you are expected to do a lot in terms of hold-up play. Hasn't quite been able to get that. And Mendes now free on the left, into the penalty area immediately. And that goes well beyond the other attackers there. It's back in the penalty area. The danger is not clear yet. It is now with John McGinn finding George Hemmings, number 53 tonight. And Omar Arsan awards a free kick to the Birmingham side for a foul there by Zaire Emery. But you see there, some excellent running, breaking the offside trap. And all Menj had to do was find a teammate, but it went past Hakimi, it went past Akliouche. Nobody was able to get onto that. And the chance went begging. So at the moment, Villa are living very, very dangerously indeed. And they've got to try and find some way back into the game. But you can tell that the absentees, especially those who have since left the club, they've left a bit of a hole in this Aston Villa side. What Unai Emery would give to have the likes of Yuri Tillemans and Morgan Rogers in this team right now. Yes, he got some good money for them to the tune of 150 million quid. But money can't buy you success on the field. Or can it? Menj and Vitinha playing a little game of tippy-tappy between them. Back with Vitinha from Pacho. Marquinhos is sort of on the right, and Hakimi's looking to overlap a bit. Kvaratskhelia to obviously Akliouche and Vitinha trying to combine, but Aston Villa win the ball. And Buendia does find Maggio. He's able to hold off Pacho and send it to McGinn. And, oh, that was a glorious opportunity for the youngster to have his name in lights. Brian Maggio, born in England. 3 friendly caps for Luxembourg, but still eligible to play for England. He connected it, but not quite on target. He knows that that's a chance that's gone begging. Kvaratskhelia not happy with him being forced off the ball there, but Matthew Cash doing a pretty good job there. Now Torres, Matson. Matson doing brilliantly, but in the end, Aston Villa do win the throw. Matson has a bit of a job to do tonight because although Villa have signed Matteo Ruggeri, he hasn't been registered in the squad. So it will be interesting to see if he plays the whole 90 minutes. I'm not too sure who Villa have as a possible replacement for him, but we will find out. And we've got Martin in the building, Chelsea fan. Big up to you, mate. Thank you for joining in. And I know that you at Chelsea have also loaned Garnacho to Villa. He's also not in the squad tonight. Kvaratskhelia on the left, hoping to find a teammate, but instead Ian Matson chests that back to his compatriot Marco Bizon. And you've also received Morgan Rogers from Aston Villa for 117 million quid, I believe. And I'm going to tell you right now that he is a quality purchase, and he's going to enjoy playing more under Xabi Alonso than he would have done under Mikel Arteta. So, yeah, you've paid, but believe you me, I've watched him play. He's quality. I wish you good luck this season. I know you're not in Europe, but you do have a chance of getting back to your former glory. You can see Maggio there, not overawed by the occasion. Had some, moments where his youth got the better of him, but I'll tell you what, he was in the right place for that cross from McGinn, right-footed. Almost Lionel Messi like that cross. With his wrong foot, of course. And had he got that on target, I don't think Sapinov would have got to that. Lindelof, Sweden captain, to Matthew Cash, the Polish right-back. And it was, of course, Sweden who beat Poland in the playoff to send Graham Potter's team through to the World Cup. And Maggio's making a bit of a threat of himself, forcing Pacho to head out for a throw. And I'll tell you what, this guy's going to be a handful for Premiership defenders later on this season. A reminder, as Martin said, do please keep hitting the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also, as the ticker says, turn on the notifications. Cash with the throw-in, hoping to find Maggio. It is with Buendia in the penalty area. Not Buendia, actually, that was Hemmings who had the shot. It was blocked. Hakimi sending it into the air. Bouncing rather awkwardly. And Aston Villa do win the ball, but Artan blows the whistle for a handball. Aston Villa are going to need more of these moments if they want to really make a match of this. 31 minutes gone. It is still Paris Saint-Germain 1, Aston Villa 0. Still a lot of time to go in the game, but Paris Saint-Germain have certainly been the dominant team, although Aston Villa have had some moments of their own. I will, of course, give you an update on some of the scores. I can tell you right now that it is 0-0 between Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's Deportivo La Coruña and Real Madrid. Real Madrid, of course, being managed by Jose, I should say. And some news from the Arsenal-Como game. Mars Lewis Skelly put Arsenal ahead on 33 minutes, thanks to an assist from Gabriel Martinelli. But the Croatian international Martin Baturina drew them level 2 minutes before half-time. So Cesc Fabregas's Como are at the moment holding Arsenal at the Emirates Stadium. Akliouche on the left now. Had some trouble there from McGinn, but found his way out of it. And PSG now hoping to try to move forward. There's Doué, who finds João Neves, hoping to send it forward to Hakimi, and Matson has to do some running. Achraf Hakimi, of course, a part of the Moroccan team that beat the Netherlands in the knockout stages of the World Cup before losing to France in the quarter-final. And, of course, Hakimi came up against quite a few of his PSG teammates. Once again, Villa having to play out deep from the back. And Cash seeing his attempted through ball intercepted, but that is, of course, a PSG throw-in. And this is the thing about Aston Villa as well. You know, they do enjoy playing from the back whenever they can, but if you force them into trouble, you know, they can concede a few throw-ins and be pegged back. And Unai Emery is definitely not happy with the way things have gone so far. Also, half-time at Old Trafford, I had mentioned that Joshua Zirkzee had put Manchester United ahead, but the USA international Brendan Aronson has equalised for Leeds United. An assist from his Welsh teammate, Daniel James. Leeds, of course, having signed James Trafford from Manchester City, and he is, of course, in the starting lineup tonight. And he's been replaced at half-time by the Leeds reserve goalkeeper, Alex Cairns. But for the moment, it's back to the action in Salzburg. It's still Paris Saint-Germain 1, Aston Villa nil. Lindelof finding Maatsen there. Maatsen has not really been able to get forward as much as he would have liked to. He doesn't overlap, but he does cut in a great deal. But some great play there. Sees George Hemmings go through. He's got McGinn on the right, but he's opted to go alone. He's found his way past Marquinhos and and Maggio with the shot there, but once again, it's wide of the keeper. This time to the keeper's left. But this is some terrific play there. I believe that was Torres who found the pass. Maggio stayed onside, sent it through to Hemmings, burst past Hakimi and was able to evade Nuno Mendes' tackle. He finds Maggio, who had the opportunity to shoot, but just couldn't get the curl on that needed to take it past Safanov. And I'll tell you what, this time around the keeper was beaten. So Aston Villa definitely looking to sharpen things up on the counter. And of course, it's a new look coaching squad as well for Aston Villa, with assistant coach Paco Ayesterin having left the club. Ayesterin, of course, was a big part of Unai Emery's work with Aston Villa, and also most notably an assistant coach to Rafael Benitez at Valencia and Liverpool. He's now left, and I don't know where he's gone. Maybe he's joined Antonio Areola at Liverpool. I will find that out. A return to Anfield would have been nice for him. And the set-piece coach, Austin McPhee, who also was Portugal's set-piece coach at the World Cup, has left Birmingham and has actually gone to work with Xabi Alonso at Chelsea. So Morgan Rogers and Austin McPhee making the move from Birmingham to West London. And Emi Buendia doesn't think the throw should be awarded to PSG, but Omar Artan completely disagrees. Hakimi with the throw. Of course, Ayesterin hasn't joined a new club as of yet. It could very well be that he's waiting for a chance to become the head coach of the club, maybe back in Spain. But Villa have looked to make some replacements, and we will see how those replacements do as their season starts. 9 minutes to go, plus any stoppages before the end of the first half. It is still Paris Saint-Germain 1, Aston Villa 0. And you've got to say that PSG have definitely looked a lot more dominant, a lot more organised with their play. But Villa have had their moments on the counter. And you would like to think that maybe an in-form Ollie Watkins would have buried those chances, but Watkins, Konsa and Emi Martinez are not in the squad tonight. And forget about the players who've left the club. I think Unai Emery will be wishing that he could call on those three right now. Of course, Marco Bizzo isn't bad, but Emi Martinez is not the world's #1 goalkeeper for nothing. Certainly proved that in the World Cup final with a record 11 saves. Very nearly took the game to penalties. And certainly played a far bigger role in the tournament, unlike a certain Spanish goalkeeper. And yes, Arsenal fans, I'm going there again. Do not even think of trying to come at me. Torres with the pass back to Beason. Short pass there to, that's Camera. Lindelof. Cash had to try and send it forward, and instead he sends it back to Lindelof. And can Bizzo try and clear the danger? Hoping to find Captain McGinn. But Nuno Mendes picks his pocket. There's, of course, back with Pacho, though. Hakimi. And PSG lose the ball. And Maggio gets on the end of that. But Hakimi alerts the danger, picks his pocket. Kvaratskhelia. Still with Kvaratskhelia. Coutinho now. Pacho. Hakimi. Akliou sending it forward to Kvaratskhelia, but is that out of play? Yes, it is. Lindelof receiving the quick throw. Passes it to Cash. Camera. He was certainly missed during the first months of 2026 with that ACL injury that ruled him out for the rest of the season. It also cost him a spot in France's World Cup squad, but he has since recovered. He's back. Another Villa midfielder to suffer an ACL injury, Amadou Onana. Sustained the injury during the World Cup when Belgium were playing Spain. Villa will receive compensation from FIFA to the tune of 9 months of his salary, 9 out of 12 months. And it will remain to be seen whether or not Onana can make a return later on in the season. Hopefully he has a swift recovery, but Emery will be moving to sign another really tough and hard tackling midfielder, and that is where João Palhinha could come in. Doué now on the left, and PSG lose the ball. It is with Buendia. Evades Neves. Hoping to find Maggio. Maggio's in the penalty area, and Maggio wins a corner. And we've just moved on to 40 minutes on the clock. Well, Kvaratskhelia caught ball watching there. And Buendia ran in, nipped it, evaded 3 defenders quite magnificently, and found Maggio, who won a corner off the PSG captain Marquinhos. So it will be Buendia again to take this corner, and this would be a brilliant time for Villa to score an equaliser if they can. Has a peach of the right foot and scored the second goal actually against Freiburg in Istanbul with his left. A beautiful curler which left the Freiburg keeper Noah Atabolu helpless. And Maggio once again with a header. And yet again, the youngster could not get it on target. Maybe Buendia's corners with his right foot are a pretty good weapon here. And once again, that right-footed cross from John McGinn, or should we say a wrong-footed cross, is a deceptive weapon. Certainly finding Maggio there in the penalty area, just can't quite get the header on target. And foul there on Emi Buendia, and Villa with a free kick. Yeah, I'm sorry, I will a little bit of a problem there with my internet connection, but I can tell you that Villa have won a free kick. And it is John McGinn who's standing over it, looking to try to whip that in from the right with that left foot of his. And this time he finds a head. A huge goal mouth scramble over there with the likes of Camara and Lindelof hoping to get a header in. And eventually Matvei Safanov claims it. So with 3 minutes to go, Villa have found a sting in their tail. Buendia, of course, was fouled in front of the penalty area, and Omar Artan had no problems awarding the free kick. So Villa starting to spring to life, certainly forcing the PSG defence into a little bit of remedial action here. For now, the experience of PSG is telling, but I'll tell you what, it's a tribute to the talent idea of Unai Emery that the youngsters so far in his team have really stood up to be counted. Not the best of throws, though. I think that was a bit too far in front of Maggio there, who was onside. And so Villa got to start all over again as we tick to 43 minutes. And that's 2 minutes left, plus any stoppages. And Menge intercepts that ball intended for McGinn, but loses a throw in the process. You see the free kick again. I think that was Lindelof, actually, who came in with the header, not quite getting on target. Camara then heading it towards goal, but Safanov getting a right hand to that. It was Marquinhos, actually, who did some defensive work clearing that away, and then Safanov saving from Camara. So Aston Villa are causing problems. And they've also managed to tighten up a little bit defensively, but you just know that with the likes of Kvaratskhelia and Doué, PSG can cause some problems. But once again, Maggio in the penalty area. And once again, he just can't quite get it on target. He is going to be an absolute nightmare for defenders in the Premiership. Let me tell you now. Buendia doing some brilliant work, finding Maggio in the penalty area, bundles over Pacho. And did that hit the post? I think it might have hit the post. He's getting closer. It was probably claiming that there should have been a corner there, but Omar Artan said, sorry, Brian, not interested. So we're into the last 30 seconds of normal time, and that intended pass there from Mensch-Kvaratskhelia, nowhere near its intended target. Lindelof intercepting, and now Villa again. It's Hemmings to McGinn. Hemmings again on the right this time. Back to McGinn. Whipping it into the penalty area. And this time Maggio scores! And what a time to score! Well, 1 minute has just been added to the clock. But this is another reason why this Aston Villa team cannot be slept on at any point this season. I'll tell you what, for all the early dominance of PSG, Aston Villa have shown that they are a quality team and they deserve this equaliser. The only problem is, the better he gets, the more likely he's going to be a target for big teams after this season. But Hemmings doing some work on the opposite flank. McGinn, once again, with a brilliant cross. Might be a suspicion of offside, perhaps, but you see there how he's able to just, muscle off Pacho quite easily. Gets it on target. And Sapanov's not saving that. And Unai Emery, a rather understated reaction, but let me tell you right now, he is delighted, as is this youngster. The Maggio man makes his mark. Maggio man. I've got to be a Maggio man. Maggio man. I've got to be a Maggio man. Aston Villa fans, if you are watching this, I hope you are absolutely delighted. And we just ticked over the added minute of some extra stoppage time. We could play another 15 seconds from the looks of it. It would be absolutely bonkers if Villa were to score here, but I don't think that's going to happen with about 8 seconds left. But it is McGinn. And some great work there, muscling off Nuno Mensch. Can Villa get a second? Finds his way in, but evades his teammates. Artan still hasn't blown his whistle. It is Matson in the penalty area now. Maggio. Artan's going to have to blow his whistle soon. Pau Torres. Matson. And with that, I think Matson will probably, Artan will probably blow his whistle, I should say. And he does exactly that. So, an exciting first half. With an absolutely riveting conclusion. For all the talk about how Paris Saint-Germain would be favourites for this game, this young Aston Villa team have shown that they cannot be slept on, and they are not here to just make up the numbers. Kvaratskhelia taking advantage of some pretty slack defending to fire PSG ahead with a tracer bullet bang on the 20-minute mark. But since then, Aston Villa have tightened up. They've looked to take advantage on the counter and bang on 45 minutes. A wonderful cross from John McGinn, finding Maggio in the penalty area. No offside. Pacho was holding on to him, but he muscled him off. And this is why Maggio will definitely be one to look out for this season. Half-time at the Red Bull Arena in Salzburg. It is Paris Saint-Germain 1, Aston Villa 1. And boy, do we have a game on our hands. Hopefully there will be some more of you who will be watching this on playback. But I'll tell you what, if you're not watching this now, you are missing a cracker. And just a reminder, this game will go straight to penalties after normal time. There will be no extra time. Maybe that's the way to go for a preseason fixture. But when it comes to major tournaments, no. You want the drama, you want the tension, you want the added jeopardy. That's what makes, tournament football so special. But I'll tell you what, the way the World Cup went in its bloated form, lasting for for about a month, it could very well be that this could be the start of the end of the World Cup as a really significant event. Because the bigger it gets, it'll be a little bit like, how things expand, and then eventually they will end up having to shrink back in order to regain some relevance. But I'm so delighted to be watching this. And once again, Hanno, I don't know if you're watching this, but thank you very much indeed, But. And all I can say is right now I am speechless. And let me just now take a look at the scores from the friendlies. I can tell you right now that we've crossed the hour between Arsenal and Como at the Emirates Stadium, and it is still 1-1. Marian Batarina cancelling out Mars Lewis Skelly's opening goal there. And between Leeds United and Manchester United, it was Xerxes who put United ahead, and Aronson who equalised for Leeds United. And there is, in fact, a goal between Deportivo La Coruña and Real Madrid. Brahim Diaz scoring following an assist from the Real Madrid goalkeeper, Andre Lunin. So basically, the entire Depot defence was left, was sort of cut in two by that assist, although I have to say I probably didn't see it that way. And any more scores to bring you? Well, nothing much as far as the other games are concerned. I believe they're all being played tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, we are seeing Nottingham Forest take on Bayer Leverkusen, and Newcastle United playing Everton. Newcastle United, of course, having lost their manager, Eddie Howe, and several of their top players, Sandro Tonali having gone to Tottenham Hotspur. Good luck to him. Anthony Gordon making the move to Barcelona, replacing Marcus Rashford. Yeah. Marcus Rashford over Gordon any day of the week and twice on a Sunday. And, of course, Bruno Guimaraes having made the move to Arsenal. I don't believe he is in the squad for tonight's game, although maybe he might be. I didn't really check. But he will be expected to play a role for Arsenal this season. I sort of see him as more of the complement for Declan Rice, and a lot of people have, earmarked him as someone who'll be starting alongside him. In fact, he has been named in the squad, and he was, of course, brought on as a half-time substitute, replacing Max Dowman. A lot of substitutes have been made by Mikel Arteta for the game, and they're still not quite able to, find the better of Cesc Fabregas's Como. But I tell you what, having lost our last two preseason games against Champions League opposition, I'm just glad that we've managed to hold our own so far. Real Betis and Borussia Dortmund put a beating on us, it has to be said, scoring 3 past us. I think there might be a few Aston Villa fan channels who will be doing a watch along tonight. A huge shout out to Rich Sutherland and the Villa Park podcast. Also Villa Forever with Chad Williams, and Justin Talks Villa. He might be doing something. So far, he hasn't done anything, so I'll hope to probably get some Aston Villa fans to, come on a bit later and maybe, share their opinions on the game if they are watching. And we'll have to see. I'm, of course, reaching out to a few people right now, thanks to Twitter, as we speak. What a first half that was. And that's also another reason why, as I've said, we cannot sleep on this link. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably send this to some of my friends at the on the Oris Talks football group chat on Instagram. Shout out to them, by the way. At the moment on my television screen, I am watching highlights of some of the previous games. Of course, grateful once again to Sony Sports Network for providing coverage of this Super Cup clash. They also will be providing coverage for viewers in India of the FA Cup and also a lot of the international tournaments and especially the European championships. They obviously won't be posting coverage of the World Cup. That will go to other channels who will be eager to put in a bid. It's been a terrific first half so far, and obviously, as Aston Villa have grown into the game, they've shown a great deal of confidence. There are one or two weak areas, though, and I think, as well as Maatsen and Cash have done, they can still be put under pressure a little bit. And I'd like to see the 4-4-2 sort of morph more into that 4-2-3-1 with Hemmings in the 10. And Hemmings, of course, has, certainly held his own. Hasn't looked too out of place. Obviously, a nervy start by Villa's youngsters, but they've grown into the game magnificently. So the big question is, how do you change this? It could very well be that someone like a Ross Barkley or a Lamine Bajada could come on for João Gomez, who has been a little bit quiet, I would say, in comparison. Only Buendia certainly showing how influential he's been. But PSG have so much talent on the bench, who they can call on to shore things up. And Villa do have a bit of a depleted squad at the moment. But again, I'm really, really glad to be doing this. And, as an Arsenal fan, in stark contrast to the dire football that we played at times in the Premier League, certainly even in the Champions League as well, I've really enjoyed watching Aston Villa play last season and the season before. And I'll tell you what, Unai Emery is definitely a past master when it comes to European football and also getting teams to play above themselves. And he literally, almost like Jesus Christ, has the ability to turn water into wine. So this Aston Villa team are really, 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 really. Yeah, I have reached out now to Rich Sutherland and the Villa Park podcast, and maybe he can get a few of his fellow YouTubers on. That's the hope. Watching up highlights, of course, from the FA Cup final. What a goal that was by the former Bournemouth player Antoine Semenyo. Manchester City. Brilliant purchase indeed. And Villa themselves are in need of a good right winger. The proposed move to Hull for Leon Bailey has, of course, collapsed. They're still hopeful that they can get it over the line and get another winger in. They have, of course, sent Evan Gesson back to Crystal Palace on loan. He won the Conference League with them last season and also picked up a Europa League medal as a part of the Aston Villa squad for his play in the league stage. So always nice to see. the Prince William there, about to award the FA Cup to Manchester City. And of course, these are highlights from the game last season. John Stones and Bernardo Silva lifting the trophy. I do wonder if His Highness the Prince of Wales has made the trip to Austria to watch the team play. He was certainly front and centre amongst the supporters as they won the Europa League in Istanbul. I'll tell you what, the thing about PSG in pre-season is, as they showed against Tottenham last season, they can be a little bit sluggish, especially in defence. And I think it's fair to say that, you know, Marquinhos, among others, has seen better days. I'll make sure that we've already had a few people liking this video, so I'm grateful. Not too many more people in the chat, I'm afraid, and not too many people watching live either, but hopefully we will have more people watching as we start the second half. And of course, that reminds me, it is time, of course, to change the scoreboard in preparation for that. I'm also reaching out to the Indian villains to try and join in, of course. And we are, of course, about to resume the second half with the teams coming out onto the field. And it looks as though Luis Enrique has made a change. We're now seeing Ousmane Dembele on the field. I'm going to find out who he is replacing. It is still 1-1 at the Emirates Stadium, still 1-1 at Old Trafford. And because the Deportivo match has started at the same time as the Super Cup, I don't think they've resumed yet, but you think they will resume quite soon. Yes, and Dembele is in fact replacing Akliouche, who started the game on the right. I think he showed had some good moments, but probably didn't quite do as much as Enrique would have wanted. But again, when you can bring on someone like Dembele to shore things up, that's just a reminder of the type of quality that Luis Enrique can call to help rescue an almost lost cause. It's not lost quite yet because it is still 1-1, but Paris Saint-Germain were not expecting to be in this position. And hopefully we'll get some people joining in the chat and also watching online. See John McGinn there talking to the referee. And once again, I have to say the referee's done a brilliant job tonight. Congratulations to Omar Artan for getting this gig, and I hope he and other African referees will get the chance to referee some games in Europe this season. But Aston Villa to get things underway. Second half from the Red Bull Arena in Salzburg about to start, and there's Buendia, who passes it back to Camara. Lindelof. Matthew Cash trying to send it forward. It's along the touchline, but McGinn controls it. Sending it forward, but pretty sure Nuno Mendes has that covered despite Buendia's best intentions, and Buendia getting into trouble there and kicking the ball away. He's going to have to be a bit careful, but I'll tell you what, the officials and the referee, of course, have gotten this game under control. So even after Buendia kicked away the ball in anger, all the linesman told him to do was just calm down, son, calm down. I understand your frustration. Quality game so far. Absolute quality. And Coutinho once again making a nuisance of himself. That will be what looks like a PSG throw-in. And you see here that the Aston Villa midfield have, after a difficult start, have managed to hold their own against the likes of Coutinho and Saint-Germain. But Coutinho obviously losing the ball like that won't help, of course. And the pass somehow finds its way to, it almost did find its way to João Gomez there, but was intercepted in the end. João Neves. On quite a few occasions, when it comes to actually being able to control the ball, I think both teams have on occasions been found wanting it. And Maggio there. Ooh, the Maggio man. And that should be a foul there on him by Desiree Doué, but the referee says otherwise. Well, starting Maggio has been inspired by Emery so far. So Emery back to Marquinhos. Pacho. And that is Coutinho, who's gone back and dropped a little bit deep. But Marquinhos. Doué passing it back. And Hakimi's there now on the right wing, but some great work there by Ian Maatsen. Maatsen finding Maggio. Controls the ball well enough. Wasn't really anyone trying to intercept him. A poor attempted chip there from Maatsen, but goes unpunished. And PSG are able to win the ball, and it is Hakimi down the right. And Aston Villa needs to be careful not to allow the wingers to get any kind of a headway here. PSG appealing for a penalty, but Artan says no, nothing doing. Maggio. And that is a clip there by João Neves on Maggio, and that'll be an Aston Villa free kick. And yeah, the referee there definitely taking a no-nonsense approach to proceedings. Some good work there by Hemmings, and Doué appealing for a penalty, but really nothing much in has to be said. We'd like to think that Enrique has this under control. But a pre-season game, the one-off trophy, anything can happen. So, of course, a reminder, whoever wins this trophy will win their second Super Cup, with both teams having won it earlier. Will PSG defend their title, or will the Birmingham side get a memorable second? Unai Emery has already won a Europa League, but he's never won a Super Cup before. Is this the night that he breaks the duck against his former team? Hakimi to Pacho. Back to Marquinhos. Finds Nuno Mendes on the left. And then sending it forward. Beautiful pass there. Does Emery keep that in, though? Yes, he does. Beautifully weighted left-footed pass there from Mendes. But Aston Villa have enough time to come back and defend. Coutinho. Does he go for another long shot? No, he doesn't. Kvaratskhelia. And hoping to send that forward, but Cash and Lindelof doing the business. And that is, of course, World Cup winner Fabian Ruiz, who is on the bench. Might very well be called to shore up the midfield later on. Not a very good piece of defensive work there from Villa, but they rectify the danger. Maggio now. And Maggio's bursting forward through the centre. He's got a player on his right. It looks like Emi Buendia. Buendia doesn't really control it well, but he can shoot. And Safanov saves it right on the 50-minute mark. Actually, that was John McGinn who shot that. My bad. And we are seeing a booking And it's the Aston Villa man, one of the Aston Villa coaches who's in for the book. Fortunately, it's not Unai Emery, but it's definitely one of the assistants. And Artan has also started to come in and assert his authority. Just as well. Nasty piece of work there from the Aston Villa number 14 to the PSG number 14. And I think it was Torres who went into the book afterwards. We do have one person watching live. Whoever you are, thank you very much indeed. Pacho. Menge. Does he ping another pass? No, he doesn't. It's a short ping back to Pacho, back to over to Marquinhos. Pacho gets it back from Marquinhos. It's with Menge now. Hoping to try and send it forward, but João Neves forced to pass it back. It is with Marquinhos now, but once again it's passed back to Pacho. Hakimi was trying to run forward, but he is still camped on the halfway line or thereabouts for what it's worth. A huge run on the left there from Kvaratskhelia, finds Menge, who's gone forward. It's Dembele now, the substitute, hoping to find Hakimi. Couldn't quite control that, and Maatsen picks his pocket. Maatsen's looked tidy for the most part tonight, but he certainly held his own, but Ruggeri coming in will certainly be a little bit of an improvement, I would say. Vitinha. And that is Kvaratskhelia. Neves. Kvaratskhelia. Finds Vitinha somewhere in the middle. Vitinha has space to run. Passes it to Hakimi on the right. Zaire-Emery's on the right wing and passes it back to Hakimi, more in the centre. Still with Zaire-Emery, though, with Doué coming up to support. Vitinha. Pacho. Menge. And that was Neves, who, of course, joined in the attack there. It is with Doué now on the right. And Pau Torres, who had earlier been booked, has to be careful not to get into the referee's bad books for, over appealing, conceding a throw there. Marquinhos, Pacho, Kvaratskhelia, Vitinha, sending it forward to Zaire-Emery, who passes it back to. Actually, that was Doué, I think, receiving that ball from Zaire-Emery and passing it to Hakimi. Now it's back with Vitinha, who's hoping to find Kvaratskhelia. He does, but not the best of passes forward to Dembele, and Lindelof intercepts. But once again, and Dembele now in the penalty area, but Torres once again clearing up the damage. Bezo did have, of course, one save to make in the first half, a fine reflex save not too long before the opener from Kvaratskhelia. And some good work there from João Gomez, who was able to win the ball. Actually, George Hemmings, I should say. It is with Buendia, Maatsen, and that is João Gomez, number 35. George Hemmings weighing 53. Not too hard to mix them up, I would say. Lindelof, Maatsen. And not the best of passes there from Maatsen, and PSG are able to intercept that. It is with Doué now. Doué and Dembele combining on the right. Dangerous indeed. But once again, Maatsen with a good interception there, but it's still in the penalty area, and this time the defense does its job. And Buendia does some good work to win the ball. Can Maggio capitalize? No, he can't. Marquinhos is forced back, though, and Maggio is hot on his tail. Sapanov is able to retrieve that pass, finding Zaire-Emery. Hakimi, back to Zaire-Emery. Out to Kvaratskhelia on the left, who's been a somewhat peripheral figure since that goal. I wouldn't say that Matthew Cash has locked him up, but he's certainly been kept quiet. Nuno Mensch, Zai Emery! And that deflection finds its way to Marco Bizos. So João Gomez there doing some important work. .55 minutes, 45 gone. It's still 1-1 between Paris Saint-Germain and Aston Villa. And McGinn, they're claiming that Menj was holding him back. The Somalian referee Omar Artan says nothing of the sort. Play on. And Lindelof there with an important interception. And a pass straight to, well, that would have been promising, but I think it was Emi Buendia there who overran and overreached. Couldn't quite control the ball the way he wanted. I'll tell you what, I know that the Arsenal Como game is free on the Arsenal YouTube channel, but I don't care. I am watching an absolute belter tonight from Salzburg. And of course, if it does go to penalties, Aston Villa might not have Emiliano Martinez, but I'm pretty sure Bezos not too shabby. And all Aston Villa have to do would be to get their penalties on target. But Aston Villa do have a rather alarming knack of missing more than a few penalties, especially a certain Ollie Watkins. And a huge pass there, hoping to find Hakimi. He should be able to keep it in, but the Villa defence does come back in time. And not the best of passes into the penalty area, although I think it did take a deflection. It is back with Hakimi, though. Receives the pass from Coutinho. Now it is with Marquinhos, who's come forward. Mensch. Kvaratskhelia on the left. Kvaratskhelia against Cash once again. Cash has stuck to him like glue, and McGinn has offered him some good support. And once again, some great defensive work. And now it's Maggio, the Maggio man. 6'4", brute strength, up against Nuno Mensch. And he doesn't take it further. Opts to pass it back to John McGinn. And this time, Artan shows some sympathy with the Scottish captain and the Scotland captain raises 2 thumbs up. You might not want to do that, Johnny boy. And that, of course, was the shot that the Scotland captain had in the first half. The deflection from Pacho probably, popped it up towards Safanov's hands. João Gomes. Matson, he's got Hemmings to his left. He finds Hemmings. Cross into the penalty area. Safanov has to try to palm that away. And it's an Aston Villa throw. And you know what? If any of you are, if there are any Arsenal fans watching tonight, hang your heads in shame. This is how you play against Paris Saint-Germain. This is how you play. You do not restrict yourself to 25% possession. Especially not after scoring a go-ahead goal. Delay. Hearing that, but it is back with João Gomes. I think that's Buendia who... that wasn't Buendia, actually. That was... looked as though it was John McGinn who whipped it in with his wrong foot again, and this time it's Buendia's turn to get his header off target. But this is great stuff from Aston Villa, and the fans and the manager are absolutely loving it. And it's amazing how, with only 5 people starting tonight from that night in Istanbul, Aston Villa have still not only given it as good as they've gotten, but they have had more chances to score than PSG. What a game. Coming up to the hour mark, Paris Saint-Germain 1, Aston Villa 1. Kvaratskhelia putting PSG ahead on the 20-minute mark with an absolute tracer bullet, which gave Marco Bizot no chance. But Brian Maggio deservedly equalising right on the 45th minute. And we have now crossed the 16-minute mark, and PSG have taken their free kick. It is with Hakimi now, who finds Dembele, hoping to send Desiree Doué forward. He is in the penalty area. But the goal should be disallowed for an offside. And rightly so. I think that's probably why the Aston Villa defenders were a bit confident they would be disallowed. And we're going to see a replay of this. Aston Villa, of course, infamous or famous, if you will, for their high line. And I'll tell you what, that goal might actually be given. No, it probably won't. There was, of course, a defender. It might have been Matthew Cash who had his left foot. They're checking it with VAR. It could very well be allowed. Matthew Cash, your left foot could cause your team some problems. I think the goal might stand. The VAR officials from Italy and Spain, respectively, are checking that. Zabello and Fernandez certainly are doing some work there. And this is always going to be a risk when you play a high defensive line. You've got to get your positioning spot on. And the goal has been awarded. Not really surprised. Not really surprised. Matthew Cash, his left foot gave him a lot of, pretty much put Villa into trouble there. That is something that they're going to have to work on for this season. I think we can certainly give Aston Villa a great deal of credit for holding their own. We are going to take a sort of a look at that replay there. And you see right there, Matthew Cash's left foot keeps Doué onside, I should say. And could Bezo have gotten his body in the way? Could very well be. It's never nice when, as a goalkeeper, you can see the goal from that tight angle. So, Aston Villa were able to show what they were made of and equalise. With less than half an hour to go before the end, can they hit back? Well, they very nearly did there with a shot from Hemmings. Maxson now, but that should be cleared. And now it's PSG's turn to do some threatening work on the counter. And that should be a foul there by João Gomez, and he will go into the book. A foul on the goal scorer, Desiree Doué. I think you do definitely have to give Aston Villa credit for not giving up, but I think their lack of experience up front is kind of costing. And so you can see there, that is what kept that left foot there from Matthew Cash is what kept Doué online. But I'll tell you what, very fine margins. If Doué had moved his left arm slightly forward, he would have been offside. As it stands, Paris Saint-Germain are 2-1 up. Coutinho with a short pass to Dembele. Dembele is probably not going to go for a long shot, but he will find Desiree Doué on the right. And he's blocked, but it is back with Dembele, chipping it into the penalty area. But a combination of Lindelof and Maxson clears it, but not for long. It is with Nuno Mendes. We see some fog descending on the arena in Salzburg. And Emery now has to consider making some substitutions, at least now, and not wait until the 75th minute. The only question is, who does he bring on? PSG made one substitution. Proved to be quite crucial. Aston Villa, though, win the ball. Hemmings, not the best ball control, though. And Hakimi ensures he doesn't go further. Coutinho to Marquinhos, who certainly looking for a pass. Finds João Neves, back to Marquinhos, forward again to Neves. And Aston Villa now are certainly trying to, attack PSG whenever they get the ball, prevent them from making those runs. Not succeeding so far with Nuno Mendes going through the defence there, but his attempted path to Doué only succeeds in finding Ian Matson, who intercepts. But once again, Villa just aren't quite able to take advantage of the loose ball, but now they do. And it's sent forward, but a bit too far for Brian Maggio, and Matvei Safanov can clear the danger. But João Gomez there going into the book as well, and he's got to be a little bit careful. There's 2 Villa players already on the booking so far. I'm not too sure that either of them would want to get sent off. Nuno Mendes is not very happy at the moment. Just another reminder of the referees. Omar Artan from Somalia, who should have refereed in the World Cup, but was arrogantly and cruelly denied his chance. But he's done a fine job tonight. The linesmen have also done a good job as well. The on-field officials, of course, all being from Africa, with a European 4th official and 2 Europeans on VAR duty. And I think we are seeing another substitution from Paris Saint-Germain. No one else. It is Nuno Mendes who goes to the touchline. I think he was the victim of a pretty poor foul there by João Gomes, and was taking some time to walk it off, maybe. And it looks as though the PSG players are all wearing black armbands in tribute to Lionel Messi's father, which is a wonderful touch. Of course, Messi did play for PSG after leaving Barcelona, and not too long afterwards moved into Miami. A wonderful gesture from the French team. Maggio not able to get onto that. And we are now more or less at the 3/4 stage of the match. 67 minutes and 30 seconds just about to elapse. So there is about 20 odd minutes or so for either Villa to find an equaliser that could take the game to penalties, or for PSG to seal the deal with a 3rd goal. And of course, if they do hold on to win 2-1, they end up being Super Cup champions either way. Certainly fair to say that Emery has looked to treat this like a pre-season game, but he's also certainly wants to try and win, and his team have certainly done him proud tonight. A little bit of a defensive lapse in concentration there from Matthew Cash, though, cost them that goal. But now we have a lapse in concentration from PSG, and when they are trying to send that forward, Hemmings there getting into trouble almost a little bit with a push on Hakimi. Got to be a bit careful that his impetuousness doesn't get him into the book. And that is, of course, the go-ahead goal from Desiree Doué. I think, you know what, I don't like to be critical of Marco Bizot because I do rate him as a backup goalkeeper, but I think you've got to say he had to get his body in the way. And then it was George Hemmings who had a shot, which was straight at Sutton. And a lot of people are still going to defend Arsenal's approach in Budapest, saying that, you know, you couldn't go all-out attack against PSG. No, I disagree. I'm going to say right now that although those tactics might perhaps have worked to some extent, to restrict yourselves to 25% possession was absolutely criminal. And this Aston Villa team are certainly, you know, their youngsters are quite raw, but if they're polished, they could go a long way. And Hakimi, of course, was on the receiving end of that pass, but a bit of an over-aggressive first touch, put it out of play and couldn't really control it. And now, right on the 70-minute mark, Emery makes some substitutions. It looks as though he's going to be bringing on Alisson and Tammy Abraham, but thankfully, of course, the danger will be cleared by Aston Villa before the substitutions are made. The deflection, though, doesn't really take John McGinn's pass through to Emi Buendia, and Hakimi is able to mop things up, and Zaire Emery passes it back to Safanov as we come to the 70-minute. 20 minutes to go, plus stoppages. Paris Saint-Germain 2, Aston Villa 1. Zaire Emery to Hakimi, back to Zaire Emery, back to Vitinha, dropping deep. Kvaratskhelia back in the centre. Pacho, Vitinha, sending it forward and finding Zaire Emery. And he certainly evades the intentions of João Gomez there. Some good passing, and he finds Nuno Mendes. Good save there from Bizot. The danger is still not cleared yet. And Pau Torres is able to tidy things up. And now there's a chance for a possible Aston Villa breakaway. It's 3 against 4 at the moment. Buendia finds Matthew Cash, who probably owes Aston Villa an equaliser. McGinn hoping to find Cash, but Pacho stopped him in his tracks. It looks as though Nuno Mendes is down on the floor again, complaining of cramp, and Bizot steps in to intervene. And here come the subs. A magnificent debut European debut, I should say, for Brian Maggio. He is replaced by the 2019 promotion hero, Tammy Abraham, connecting brilliantly with that cross and finding the back of the net. Now, Tammy Abraham, of course, who scored that breathlessly late goal against Sunderland in the Premiership to win that match 4-3. He's now on in his place. And it will be John McGinn to come off, and he will be replaced by the young Brazilian Alisson. And Lamana Bojada will be coming on for what looks like Emi Buendia. So this could either be a case of damage limitation, or it could be, a possible tactical substitution. And of course, we'll have to find out who will be taking the captain's armband for Aston Villa with John McGinn off the field. And McGinn, of course, was given a yellow card for an early infringement. It will be an Aston Villa throw. And like I said, I've really enjoyed watching Aston Villa play last season, and tonight they've certainly shown why they deserve to be competing for the Super Cup tonight. And a chance here, maybe Alisson could make an impact. Saved by Safadov, but a chance to score. João Gomez had his name in lights. Blocked by a defender. Ian Matson now trying to weave his way around Zaire Emery. Zaire Emery gets the better of it. And George Hemmings concedes the throw, but almost very nearly an impact there. It was pushed out. And Zaire Emery was the one who had to slide in and intervene to block that shot from João Gomez. Excellent tackle there. And I think that was the infringement there by John McGinn, complaining about the... so I think he was supposed to be going off, but instead ran back onto the field, and Omar Artan told him, don't even think about it, Johnny. And some substitutions now for PSG. It is Lucas Hernandez, the former France international, left back, who will be replacing Nuno Mendes. And now Fabian Ruiz comes into play, and he will be replacing João Neves. So 21 for 25, 8 for 87. Ricardo. Hoping to find Alisson, but it's cleared. Lindelof rushing forward, wins the ball. Great stuff from the Sweden captain. And across into the PSG penalty area, but Pacho heading the deflected header away. And once again, PSG can clear. Kvaratskhelia with the ball. Hernandez, and that is, of course, going to be a foul, I think. Kvaratskhelia going to the ground in pain. 75 minutes of elapsed. It is still PSG 2, Aston Villa 1. There actually is Boubacar Kamara who's gone off the field instead of Tammy Abraham. I mean, Eni Buendia, I should say. And that was a sort of an off-the-ball foul there by Tammy Abraham. Has to be careful. He's just come on. And this is around about the stage of the game where the tackles start to become harder and the referee will have to get the game under control and issue a few bookings. But once again, credit to the officials on the field. They've done a fine job so far tonight. Hernandez. Pacho. Marquinhos. Hakimi. Hoping to send the ball forward, and Torres playing his part and sort of blocking Coutinho off the ball. This backwards Torres, the Spanish centre-half. Hoping to send it forward. Doesn't quite find its man. Ricardo does find João Gomez. And still can't thread a pass through, but Marco Bizot can claim that. Well, actually, he rather takes it away from Dembele and clears the danger so far. Matthew Cash sending it forward. And Allison also getting into the thick of it, but with a dangerous backward header that finds Kvaratskhelia. Kvaratskhelia against Cash and Lindelof, only one winner. But the Aston Villa defence somehow holds firm. And they win a throw. Bobby Martinez, the former Portugal and Belgium manager. In line to potentially become the manager of Holland. Lord knows how. Throw-in isn't really a very effective one, and PSG can win the ball. Zaire finding Doué, but his rather stylish attempted pass is intercepted, and Matthew Cash now has to try to pass his way out of trouble, and somehow it finds Buendia. Just as well that Buendia is still on the field. Kamara obviously couldn't really last the whole 90 minutes, and Matson doing brilliantly to prevent that ball from going out of play. A cross-field pass there from Buendia. It is with Torres now, but hoping to find Buendia, but Marquinhos ends up getting that ball and passing it back to the keeper. It's with Hakimi now. PSG looking a little bit more comfortable despite Aston Villa's best intentions. 12 minutes to go plus stoppages. Hernandez up there with, actually that's Ruiz, I should say, passed it to back Kvaratskhelia. Hernandez probably won't overlap that much. Ruiz hoping to find Kvaratskhelia, but a great tackle there, and that's a foul inside the penalty area by Ruiz, and that will be a free kick to Aston Villa. Claude Makelele also in the stands tonight. And two more substitutions. It will be the former Aston Villa captain Tyrone Mings coming on to replace Pau Torres. Certainly put in the shift tonight. And after a comparatively disappointing outing tonight, João Gomes goes off. And the former England international Ross Barkley, still in his second stint with Aston Villa, comes on for the final 11 minutes plus stoppages. Barkley, of course, no stranger to big European nights. The Europa League winner in 2019 against Unai Emery's Arsenal with Chelsea. And of course, that Chelsea team had a certain Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal. And where is Kepa, you might ask? With the Arsenal. Ian Matson now, down the left. Across into the penalty area, but evades everyone and Sapanov gathers. And Kvaratskhelia once again hoping to find Dembele, but Lindelof has put in a brilliant shift tonight. And this is, it was very nearly a problem there with Buendia, but he wins a foul and a free kick. And we have just ticked on to 80 minutes. It is still Paris Saint-Germain 2, Aston Villa 1. Aston Villa are bravely fighting and not giving up this contest. Lindelof with the free kick. Sending it across the field to Ian Maatsen. Finds Ross Barkley. His first touch of the ball, sending it through to George Hemmings. Across to Matthew Cash. And that is Alisson on the right wing. Back to Cash. Lindelof, who certainly looked a much more rejuvenated player under Unai Emery, and once again, sadly, that attempted attack breaks down. And now it's Dembele on the right. He's up against Tyrone Mings, the same position from where Kvaratskhelia scored. Actually, not Kvaratskhelia, it was Doué who scored the second goal. This time around, though, Villa have defended well. And now it's Tammy Abraham, who came on for Brian Maggio. Not quite as muscular, but certainly finds the pass through. And that evades everyone, and that goes out for a goal kick. And Alisson there, you can see the pain etched across his face. He needed someone else there. And you see the space that Tammy Abraham had. Pacho was backing up. Finds Alisson there, but there needed to be someone else getting onto the end of that. Tammy Abraham was being blocked, but the Aston Villa fans are loving it. They're loving every minute of it. And Aston Villa are showing Arsenal how to play against PSG. Yes, they may end up losing tonight, but they are losing with a lot more honour, a lot more style, and a lot more, honour about them, you should say, than Arsenal did in Budapest. And I'll tell you what, it would have been an absolute travesty of justice if Arsenal had one in Budapest. But a poor defensive mistake there. I think that was Lamani Bouchard there. But Lindelof, here's the danger. Back with Emi Buendia. Alisson making himself useful. And you see that they're trying to thread some passes through, but they're just not finding the connection that they need. And Lindelof having a fine game. Once again, marshalling the defence quite brilliantly. I'm not too sure who's wearing the captain's armband. I'll have to find out. Could it be Lindelof? And tired attempted pass there from Buendia is intercepted by Fabian Ruiz. Kvaratskhelia now in the penalty area. Finds Dembele, but an ambitious-looking volley ends up being a wild swipe, high and ugly into the stands. And was there a hint of an offside there where for Kvaratskhelia? Maybe the defensive line should have held on the hour mark instead of now. So Marco Bizot's going to have to get a hold on, get a move on, I should say. Both sides having 4 attempts on target. Paris Saint-Germain, of course, having more attempts. Aston Villa have definitely, added so much to this game, it has to be said. Barkley finding Hemmings on the left. A cross in, and I think Hemmings might just want to let that go out for a throw. Had it gone out for a corner, it would have been ideal. Marquinhos there coming to the rescue. And it will be Ian Maatsen to take the throw. Does have a decent throw on him, although this one is a bit shorter. But it does find Ross Barkley. And so he ends up finding a short pass into the penalty area, but Hakimi is able to intercept that, and that is whacked out of play by Matinha for another throw. Mings and Maatsen combining now. Maatsen now can certainly run in, cut right in, but running straight into the defence there like a train hitting the buttons. And much more of a boot out, really. No attempt to find a teammate there. Goes straight to Bizot. Lindelof now. Cash. Bouchard. Nephew, of course, of the ex-Chelsea defender Winston Bouchard. Lindelof, the former Manchester United defender. And an attempted pass there, and Omar Artan doesn't stop play. And that's always going to be the problem with Aston Villa. I think they will obviously try to do something really special, but they just don't quite have the physicality in midfield to ensure that they get away with these 50-50 tackles or get them in their They do have the ball, though, but not the best of ball control. However, it is with Matthew Cash. Great work there from Alisson to backheel it towards him. Cash, though, surrounded by defenders, and you can tell that he's starting to feel tired as we've already crossed 85 minutes, which means there are 4.5 minutes left, plus stoppages. Hakimi. Dembele. And you can see that it's now become a little bit more defensive-oriented, and Bizot having to play a short back pass out to Mings, who finds Maatsen. Hemmings. And Hemmings wins the throw. Enrique appealing for a handball, but he knew the ball had gone out of play before that. And final PSG substitution. Kenny Mayulu coming on for the goal scorer, the go-ahead goal scorer, Desiree Doué. Young Frenchman, of course, will probably be expected to grow the more he becomes a part of the first team. PSG probably happy to just wind down the play and control possession. I don't think they see Aston Villa scoring, but again, this Aston Villa team can surprise you. Not too long after Alisson came on, he very nearly had an assist for a goal. Barkley. He's had his own injury problems. And of course, he wasn't really in the Europa League squad last season, but he did make an appearance in the league phase after Tyrone Mings got injured. And that ensured that he would qualify for a winner's medal. Expected to move to Coventry, of course, but that move broke down over a dispute in wages. Would have been reunited with his former England teammate, Frank Lampard, who is, of course, Coventry manager. And some good work there from Emi Buendia. And he wins a free kick with 2.5 minutes to go, plus stoppages. And more of a defensive substitution now as Kvaratskhelia, who scored that absolute tracer bullet of the goal in the first half, is now brought off. So both of PSG's goal scorers have now been brought off, and it is Beraldo, a central defender, who's now been brought on. So Lucas Beraldo, of course, will be brought on to shore up the defence. Also took a penalty in Budapest and scored his penalty, I believe. Maatsen and Hemmings trying to combine, but being forced back. Mings to Lindelof. Cash. And Cash once again feeling the heat, feeling tired, but he does win a throw. Or does he? Omar Artel saying, sorry, Matthew. You were the one who put it out of play. It's a PSG throw. Well, you can see the pass is completed more than twice that for PSG. 509 to 243 for Aston Villa. Lucas Hernandez with the throw. And that is straight to Victor Lindelof, and Matthew Cash keeps that in play, hoping to find Tammy Abraham. He gets ahead to it, but is prevented from proceeding further with it. But Marquinhos also has to try to get himself out of trouble, and he doesn't. And Lamana Bahadeh can't quite take it forward. A poor first touch, it has to be said, from the substitute. And now Paris Saint-Germain can wrap it up with Dembele. But not the best of shots there from the France international. Into the last 30 seconds of normal time, and there will be some stoppages, you would imagine. At least 2 minutes. Can Aston Villa make a final heroic push? George Hemmings there, beaten to it by Warren Zaïre-Emery. And it's not the best of clearances from Matvei Saponov, it has to be said. Headed down, but Buendia once again cannot find his man. And you can see right now that the players are starting to tire. I think it could very well be that they are quite more or less resigned to defeat unless they can really find one final moment of magic. Barkley sending it forward. Buendia. And Alisson there chopped off the ball. We do have 5 minutes of stoppage time, so it is not quite over just yet. And you can see that the PSG fans are all celebrating. A very risky pass there from Lindelof. And PSG do manage to win the ball back in the centre of the field. It is the centre of the field. It is with Dembele. Zaire-Emery. I think they're just content right now at this stage to pass the ball amongst each other and avoid making any mistakes. And you can see right now, the likes of Buendia and Cash, I think they've just tired themselves out. Lamada Bajada there. Not really the best when it comes to ball control. 1 minute already gone. Marquinhos. Pacha. Lucas Hernandez, French international. Geraldo. And that is, of course, Vitinha, who wasn't brought off. But Villa do have the ball back. Barkley to Buendia. And it is Abraham now on the right. I think for all of the endeavour, they just don't quite have enough players going up front. But it is with Bajada now. Barkley finds Ian Matson. Matson forced to pass back to Barkley. Again, some interplay between Matson and Barkley. He's got Tyrone Mings now, who's come up on the left. And another back pass to Matson. Once again, between Mings and Matson. Across the field to Bajada, who will need to do a little better with the ball with his feet. Buendia, who's had a fine game, but looks a little bit tired. Allison on the right, hoping to send Matthew Cash forward. And Cash does well to keep the ball in play and prevent a goal kick, but this time PSG do get the goal kick. Allison there, running on and just sending that behind. And so with half of the 5 minutes now elapsed, it looks as though Unai Emery will end up not winning a Super Cup. The Super Cup drought looks set to continue. And will he ever get another chance? His team aren't in the Europa League this season, but they are in the Champions League. And the last time Unai Emery won the Europa League with Villarreal, beating Arsenal and Manchester United en route to doing so, I should say, he went on to take that ragtag and bobtail Villarreal team to the semi-finals of the Champions League the following season, losing to Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. That team, of course, had an aging, creaking Raul Albiol in their defence. But now Manchester City reserve goalkeeper Geronimo Rulli in goal. Emi Martinez is understudy with Argentina, of course. And also a certain Nicholas Jackson. And another member of that 2021 vintage for Villarreal, a certain Pau Torres, who started tonight. Geraldo now, finding Dembele. And some brave goalkeeping from Bizot, diving at the feet of, I think that was Vitinha and possibly Hakimi. But the danger isn't over as we now tick into the final minute of time added on. Aston Villa have about 50 seconds to try to play their way out of trouble and try and find an equaliser. Otherwise, Paris Saint-Germain will retain the UEFA Super Cup. George Hemmings finding Ian Matson on the left. It's now or never for the Birmingham boys. And with that header from Buendia going wide, with 30 seconds to go, it looks like it's never. Well, it's been an absolutely heroic performance from Aston Villa. And I will say this again, they've shown a lot more courage, a lot more class, a lot more dynamism than Arsenal did in Budapest. But it's all for nothing in the end, as the Champions League winners' experience and know-how has taken them through. Or has it yet? A chance now, though. Barkley in the penalty area. No penalty given there. And that should be the end of that, I think. Or is it? Yes, it is. And it's the end of the game. And at this moment in time, I can tell you right now that Paris Saint-Germain have beaten Aston Villa 2-1 to defend their Super Cup and win a second one in succession. Unai Emery still hasn't won the Super Cup. Aston Villa put in a brave performance, full of fight, full of class, full of courage, full of dignity. It just wasn't going to be enough against this all-conquering PSG side, who's fielded 9 players in the starting lineup who were there in Budapest when they beat Arsenal. Well, there certainly are a lot of positives that can be taken from this game if you're a Villa supporter. Ryan Maggio's first European appearance certainly suggests that he will be a huge thorn in the side for many a European team this season in the Champions League. And in the Premiership, I don't think defenders are going to be ready for him. The only question is, will Emery start him once Ollie Watkins is back fit? Or does he bring him on as more of a bench option? And now, of course, with Tammy Abraham also in the picture, Aston Villa do have 3 strikers from which to choose. It could very well be that Maggio is a bigger and stronger version of Tammy Abraham, who was, of course, sensationally brought back. One for the nostalgists, one might say. And, of course, he ended up with the Europa League winners medal to his credit. But, and of course, we see Luca Digne there. Wasn't called on to play, but probably didn't need to be called on. Having a wonderful reunion with his ex-teammates with whom he won the Europa League last season. How things change. Barely months ago, he was toasting Europa League success. Now he ends up with a Super Cup medal, albeit with a different team. We see the name being engraved, and I will be ending the stream not too long after the trophy presentation. And Emery, once again, I think he can be quite happy with the way his team played, but some individual mistakes and certainly some defensive mistakes have let him and his team down tonight. And of course, Lucas Hernandez being called on meant that Luca Digne didn't get onto the field, but probably just as well might have been too emotional a reunion. And again, you would think that with Mesri Konsa, Ollie Watkins and Emi Martinez in the side, it would have made a bit of a difference. Although Victor Lindelof, I have to compliment him. Ever since joining Villa from Manchester United, he has been, as I've said, rejuvenated and certainly looked, a lot better. And that decision by Emery to bring him into the double midfield pivot near the end of the season for the Europa League semi-final and the final, masterstroke. Not exactly reinventing the wheel because Pep Guardiola did that with John Stones, but it worked a treat. And so I'm expecting a lot of good things from this Aston Villa squad once they really strengthen it. If they can hopefully get the João Palhinha deal over the line and get in another quality right winger, they are going to look really good. Let's not forget, Martinez, Watkins, and Konsa are expected to come back into the picture. Konsa, of course, is subject to a potential move to Arsenal, but Villa, quite rightly, are expecting nothing less than 60 million for him. And Arsenal, once again, are just trying to be a little bit snide and too clever for their own good and saying, no, we're not going to pay that much for him. And without William Saliba in that team of ours, they're going to struggle, and rightly so. And, of course, speaking of Arsenal, let me keep you up to date with some of these scores and fixtures, of course. Confirmation, of course, the full-time result here in Salzburg. Aston Villa losing 2-1 to Paris Saint-Germain. I can tell you right now that it finished 1-1 between Arsenal and Como, but Arsenal did win 4-3 on penalties. Not too sure who scored those penalties. To be honest, I couldn't really give a flying fig, a flying pig or whatever. Finished 1-1 between Manchester United and Leeds United. Manchester United winning 5-4 on penalties. And in the other pre-season friendly from Spain, Brahim Diaz's goal in first half stoppage time was enough to give Real Madrid the win over Deportivo La Coruña, who of course will be returning to play in La Liga and have of course signed Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Charlie Patino to their ranks. So the former Arsenal players could be expected to enjoy themselves. And you can see from the celebrations there how much this means to Paris Saint-Germain. Confirmation of the scoreline. Dawson, Kvaratskhelia and Doué enough to hold up Aston Villa despite a brave effort, a very gutsy effort from the Birmingham side. Brian Maggio equalising on the stroke of 45 minutes, just before the first half ended. A poor defensive mistake there from Matthew Cash maintaining the line meant that Desiree Doué was able to go in and score. I do believe that Marco Bizot should have spread himself and prevented that. And we see Ross Barkley and Tyrone Mings, the old war horses, applauding the fans who came all the way to Salzburg. I think the Aston Villa fans will certainly be very proud of the performance that Aston Villa put in. They probably might not have been expected to win tonight. A trophy would have been wonderful. It would have been amazing for Unai Emery to finally break his Super Cup duck, but it just wasn't to be. But again, I'm going to tell you right now, this Aston Villa side are going to be a very tough proposition in Europe this season. They reached the quarterfinals in 2025. In 2027, could they go even further? Do not bet against them. Having said that, of course, it is hard to look beyond Paris Saint-Germain completing a hat-trick of Champions League titles. It has been done on a few occasions, although it's mainly been Real Madrid who've been the guilty parties in that regard. But this Paris Saint-Germain team, they have a way of being able to evolve and really look good and still continue to play very well. And in signing Akliouche, I think they're also going to be a real handful for many teams. And you cannot look beyond them defending this Champions League title that they have. You see Luis Enrique there in deep discussion with Dembele. Magnus Akliouche, of course, 24 years old, already earned 10 caps with France. And he signed for Paris Saint-Germain in the off-season from Monaco. And also a part of the France squad, which reached the semi-finals, only to lose out to eventual champions Spain. And I'm going to say this right now, I am not impressed by the Spanish team. They're not even a patch on the 2010 vintage that won the World Cup, sandwiched between two European titles. I see the Spanish team being caught out later on, and I'm going to call it right now. England should win the 2028 Euros and beat Spain in the process. Time, of course, for the presentation ceremony, and all I can say is, Omar Artan and your team, very well done. I thought you handled it magnificently. You showed why you were worthy of being awarded this game, and I hope to see more of you from more people like you from the continent working in Europe. You will definitely raise the profile of the continent, especially with regard to referees and linesmen, and deservedly so, receiving their medals there. The linesmen, of course, Liban Ahmed and Stephen Yembe. The other officials, the fourth official, of course, being the Slovenian Obrenovic. And the VAR officials, Dibello and Fernandez. Quadra Fernandez, it must be said. Recap of the score. PSG 2, Aston Villa 1. Kvaratskhelia and Doué with the goal to PSG. Brian Maggio with a wonderful equaliser. Whoops. Not just yet. This is what I'm looking for. Paris Saint-Germain have beaten Aston Villa to win the 2026 UEFA Cup, Super Cup. And we see Aston Villa going up to receive their silver medals. Unai Emery going first, followed by Captain John McGinn. And the Birmingham fans, of course, applauding their players, and rightly so. John McGinn, Tyrone Mings, former captain, of course, and probably will be expected to take up more of the leadership responsibility this season. Emi Buendia and Matthew Cash, of course, having played their part. Ross Barkley came on as a substitute. George Hemming started tonight. Didn't look too out of place. Tammy Abraham, a late substitute. And a few of the other subs who didn't get called on receiving their medals, of course. And the Villa fans are loving every bit of it, as they should. Starting goalkeeper Marco Bizot. A lot will be expected of him. And there goes Brian Maggio. Well played tonight, son. Outstanding game, well taken goal. You're going to be a star for Aston Villa this season, believe you me. Substitute keepers as well, getting their medals. Brian Maggio, of course, with his. Chardonge and Emi Buendia scored an absolute beauty of a left-footed corker in the Europa League final. Didn't get on the score sheet tonight. Just not to be for a slightly depleted Aston Villa side coming up against this well-drilled and experienced PSG team as they go up to receive their winners' medals, and Marquinhos will once again be awarded the trophy. Fabian Ruiz picking up more medals for club and country. Vitinha there. Lucas Feraldo, a late substitute. Nino Menge, the starting left back, of course. Ashraf Hakimi, starting right back and vice captain. Pacho. Dembele, who came on as a substitute. Doué, scorer of the winner. Mayulu, who came on as a sub. João Neves, who also started. Won't be long before Kvaratskhelia receives his medal. You can see the Georgian flags flying in the Red Bull Arena. Kvaratskhelia, of course. Matvei Saponov, the starting goalkeeper. Lucas Chevalier, of course, a lot was expected of him, but ended up losing his place to his Russian teammate. And one wonders what will end up becoming of him and his career. Luca Digne receives his medal. Ilya Zabani, former Bournemouth defender. Finally, PSG's Brazilian captain Marquinhos receiving his medal and will end up receiving the trophy. And after a professional, if not very easy performance, Paris Saint-Germain have beaten Aston Villa to win the 2026 UEFA Super Cup with a 2-1 scoreline. And so, without further ado, it's time for Marquinhos to raise the trophy. Congratulations to Paris Saint-Germain, winners of the 2026 UEFA Super Cup. It is Paris Saint-Germain's second ever Super Cup win and their second in succession as Champions League winners. The last Europa League winner to win the Super Cup was Atletico Madrid. Diego Simeone, of course, was coach. And that was well back in the day, more than 10 years ago, I would think. In fact, I'm actually going to find out when it was the last time. So Yeah, it was in fact in 2018, 8 years ago, that Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone beat Real Madrid in Estonia, in Tallinn, at the Molecular Stadium to win it. And that was the last time a Europa League winning team won the Super Cup. Real Madrid, of course, were managed by Julian Lopetegui, who's had a pretty journeyed career since. And of course, it was supposed to have been Diego Simeone, but he had been given a 4-match touchline ban following the semi-final first leg in the Europa League. So it was assistant manager Herman Burgos, the former now Argentinian goalkeeper, who filled in for him. And in that Atletico Madrid team was a certain Rodri, who has since gone on to lift even bigger trophies with Manchester City and, of course, captained Spain to the World Cup. Lucas Hernandez was also in that Atletico Madrid team. He picked up another Super Cup tonight. Antoine Griezmann, of course, who was with Atletico and sort of flitted between Atletico and Barcelona throughout his career, now playing in the MLS for Orlando City. A certain former Arsenal midfielder was also a part of that Atletico Madrid team, he who shall not be named. But all that aside, this is the story of the night. It was, of course, the UEFA Super Cup 2026 between Paris Saint-Germain and Aston Villa, live from the Red Bull Arena in Salzburg in Austria. And the story of the match is as follows. Paris Saint-Germain beating Aston Villa 2-1, thanks to goals from Kvicha Kvaratskhelia and Desiree Doué, sandwiching a Brian Maggio equaliser on the stroke of 45 minutes. And with this result, Paris Saint-Germain beat Aston Villa to win the Super Cup. And it was a wonderful performance from Aston Villa, certainly, as I said, full of courage and a lot of dignity. They showed that they were up for it, and they definitely made a much greater fist of trying to win this game than Arsenal did in Budapest when they played the Champions League final. And this is another reason why, despite being an Arsenal fan, I just love watching this Aston Villa team play. I really do. They, under Emery, they play a really exciting brand of football, which really is at its best in Europe. And we even saw that in many ways in the 2018-2019 season when we played outstandingly well and even went all the way to the final. We were scoring a lot of goals there, with the likes of Aubameyang and others finding the target almost regular. It's such a shame it didn't quite work out, but it is what it is. But again, this Aston Villa team, ever since the dark days of 2018 and 2018 and 2016, of course, before that, when they were relegated and in very grave danger of being, forced into administration and being wound up, they've recovered magnificently, and look where they are now. And that's why I say do not sleep on them. They've got an outstanding manager. Their ownership and their board have worked magnificently to, undo the damage that was done under the previous administration, headed by Tony Ziyech. And it's really heartwarming to see them succeed. I'm not being patronising. I'm not. I love watching them play. And even if they end up, succeeding at the expense of my Arsenal team, at times I can't really complain. All I can do is just blame Arsenal and say that at the end of the day, they just didn't deserve to win. And I will be watching with keen interest the game between Villa and Arsenal at Villa Park, which will be the second game of the season for both teams. Aston Villa, of course, will be beginning their season with an away trip to the Amex Stadium to play against Brighton and Hove Albion. And Arsenal will be coming up against Frank Lampard's Coventry. They will, of course, be taking the trip to the Emirates. This coming, it'll be Friday of next week, of course. That'll be the beginning of the season. So I think Aston Villa will be hoping that the World Cup absentees will be fit to return and fit to play. It will be interesting to see if Emi Martinez has lost the discomfort in his finger and can continue to play. It could very well be that the Premier League this season will be Villa's biggest fish they can possibly fry. But I wouldn't be surprised if they make an effort to do well in the cup competitions this time around after early exits last season. And of course, they won the Europa League last season. If they can go very far in the Champions League, that would also be a very big bonus. But I wish them good luck this season, and I hope they really do well. And as far as Arsenal, all I can say is I just hope we can get our squad in order. I don't think we're going to be repeating as league champions this time around. And the pressure will be on us to do a lot more this season, it must be said. For now, though, this is how I'm going to leave you. Paris Saint-Germain are the 2026 UEFA Super Cup winners. They've beaten Aston Villa 2-1 tonight in Salzburg. A well-deserved win, but once again, credit to Aston Villa, credit to both teams, I should say, for putting on an absolute cracker tonight. And Hanno, once again, thanks to you for letting me do this. I just regret that we didn't really have too many people watching tonight, but those who did, thank you for tuning in. I'm really glad I was able to do this. It was an absolute crack. So without further ado, I hope to see you again soon on another stream. Until then, this is me saying, take care of yourselves, be safe and be happy. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do, and do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. Until then, though, from me to you, I bid you adieu.